Do you like this model? If so, consider checking out the House Spouse Hobbies Patreon, link in the description below, where instructions for this and all future mocks featured on the channel will be available to all paid members. So today we are going to be talking about how to get into the LEGO hobby as an adult, starting with the story of how I got into the LEGO hobby as an adult. I know that LEGO content online can be really intimidating. Large city layouts like those on Mr. Bookyboo, Bevan's Bricks, and Lion's Bricks, and complicated custom models like those featured on Chubbybots, Hachiroku 24, and Galactic Plastics all served as real inspirations for me to get into the hobby, but also the sheer scale of their projects and their parts collections were intimidating in a way that did make me hesitant to jump into the hobby. In fact, I worry that even at my current scale, my channel can be that kind of overwhelming. The goal of this video is to dispel some of that intimidation. My hope is to be able to pull back the curtain a little bit and show that a collection like mine is not at all a starting point, but rather kind of the amount that you need to have to justify something like, starting a YouTube channel. This video will use some AFOL terminology, but there's no need to feel intimidated by the jargon. Whenever I use a term that isn't common English, I'll pop out the definition below like so. Our story begins with my dark ages, around the year 2012. In a misguided attempt to be mature, high school me put aside their toys in favor of a different, more adult form of plastic crack. Warhammer minis. Incidentally, that was about as rough on my budget. I would not end up escaping my dark ages and returning to the light of LEGO until around the year 2018, when I began a job under a new manager. This manager was fond of two things, really: optimizing business practices and LEGO. As a result, he received a number of nicknames inspired by the LEGO movie's Lord Business. Lord Business' entire cubicle was decorated with LEGO. I distinctly remember looking across the top of the cubicles on my first day and thinking, is that Wall-E made out of LEGO? With the image of that cubicle in mind, I set out to get a trio of Iron Man minifigures for myself from that year's Bricks and Minifigs Buy Two, Get One Black Friday sale. It really is okay to get started in this hobby with something as small as a minifigure. Respect both your capacity and your budget. If your favorite character is Boba Fett, just get the $16 mech from Target instead of committing to a retired and expensive set, like Boba Fett's throne room. If you do end up enjoying whatever smaller sets you do check out, you can always come back and get some of the bigger stuff at a later time. That actually brings us to the next part of my story, Avengers Endgame. As you may have already gathered, I have something of a favorite character. If you're familiar with this particular wave of sets, then you know that all quality and accuracy were sacrificed on the altar of Marvel's draconian anti-spoiler policies. However, my favoritism did mean that one set in particular left a very strong impact on me. Set 76125 Iron Man Hall of Armor had absolutely nothing to do with Avengers Endgame and came out almost 6 years exactly after the movie that it did reference, but it sang a song to my heart. By the time the set was announced, or rather leaked, I had already collected several Iron Man minifigures and had been looking for a way to display them other than just having them on mini plates on my desk. As a result, this set was the perfect enticement to jump into the hobby feet first. If I take off the rose-tinted lenses, I can understand why people at the time complained about this set, but it'll always have a special place in my heart for bringing me into the fold. I don't know you personally, so I can't recommend something specific that will fill the same role for you, but if you're looking for whatever sparks joy, that's probably a good place for you to start. If you see a set on store shelves and it makes you happy, it looks like it'd be fun to build, don't bother looking for internet opinions or for reviews. Just give it a shot. It doesn't matter what the general consensus is. It matters that you have fun. Just because the internet has a tendency to suck does not mean that your life has to, which is honestly really good advice, even if you're not interested in LEGO. Once I got over my sheer excitement, however, I did have some things that I wanted to change about the set even at the time. The hinge plates used to give the Hall of Armor its recognizable curvature resulted in both a too small arc and a loose connection, neither of which I was terribly fond of, and I found the details that were included in the set, such as the prototype jetpack, to be insufficiently referential to the source material and kind of underthought anyways. As a result, the set not only galvanized my LEGO hobby from a set collection perspective, but also from a mock creation perspective. I spent a good deal of time in studio prototyping different means of creating that curvature, but I actually ended up finding the solution that I liked the most by engaging with my local LEGO community. One of the employees at the local Bricks and Minifigs was building his own Hall of Armor and had used narrow gauge LEGO train track to structure that curve, and I actually really liked the arc that this gave. Armed with the new collection of LEGO train track and the armor capsules from the official set, I prototyped out my first mock of the Hall of Armor. If you're wanting to get into building building your own models, I would recommend this approach. Getting a set that you mostly like can expose you to related building techniques and provide you with the skeleton for the model that you want to actually build on your own. On a similar note, engaging with other AFOLs can lead you to creative insight and uncommon pieces that you might have otherwise overlooked or not had in your repertoire. Taking a set that you found underwhelming and remaking it in your own image, or taking a set that you love and trying to apply some of its most interesting techniques to your own projects, can be one of the best ways to learn what makes or breaks a LEGO model, a skill that can't really be learned by any means other than experience. One of the defining things about this project for me was the need to be deliberate about what details I included. Obviously, the focal point of this model is the minifigures, but this model is the stage for those minifigures, and without effective detail, there's really no reason to use this model instead of just putting everything on a stand. As a result, my Hall of Armor includes a plethora of both brick-built and stickered or printed references to a variety of parts of the MCU. The stickers aren't anything special or custom, having been lifted from official LEGO sets, but the brick-built references are more interesting. We have the cheeseburger, holographic repulsor blueprint, proof that Tony Stark has a heart and partially dissembled armor from Iron Man 1, the blender used to make chlorophyll smoothies and the exposed piping in the wall from Iron Man 2, the holographic screens that Tony argued Nick Fury needed in the Avengers, the record player that got destroyed at the beginning of Iron Man 3, Spider-Man eating a pizza perched up in the rafters from Spider-Man Homecoming, and the nano gauntlet construction chamber from Avengers Endgame. I also threw in some details suggesting that Tony helped make the technology used by Batman, Overwatch, and Hero Factory more because it made me happy than anything else. This kind of project can be a really accessible way to get into building your own models. Most of the work that I did in this model involved building a frame for the submodels of the original set, and adding some detail to the exterior that I felt really sold everything. The bulk of the pieces that I needed could be found in the original set. I didn't really need to know anything about structural integrity or complicated building techniques because I was already building on top of a structurally sound base. An alternative approach that you might try would be purchasing two sets and using one to upgrade the other, or smashing the two together into a single model. This sort of creative application of available resources can really help stretch your budget when you're first getting into the hobby. Of course, perfectionism is never satisfied, and one of the awesome things about LEGO is that you can keep changing a model for as long as you have it. It's perfectly fine to come back to your earlier projects, or even your most recent one, after a little bit of time away with a fresh set of eyes and feel unsatisfied with some things and decide that you want to change them. In fact, I've done it more than a couple of times as I've been staring at this model over the course of putting this video together. I'm still not quite satisfied with the way that I've concealed the train track that makes up the model's scaffolding. I want to expand with more modules so that I can fit more minifigures, since I definitely cannot fit all of them at this point. And coming back to something that I've been thinking about with this model literally since 2018, I kind of want to build a proper base for it, especially from the perspective of locking some of the floating elements into place. The key is that instead of getting frustrated when a model isn't quite working the way that you want it to, take a step back, revel in the challenge, and give yourself permission to continue working on it over time. Don't try to force things to reach a point of completion the way that you would if this were an official LEGO set that needed to be rushed out the door for a deadline. Let yourself take your time and enjoy the journey. Incidentally, while that is good advice for building a MOC, it's pretty good advice for engaging in the hobby as a whole as well. Above all else, be sure to have fun. Just like that very first point that we made, whatever you enjoy is what's going to give this hobby life. Don't let anybody else tell you that there is or isn't a right way to engage in this hobby. Build your own space. Your hobbies are for you, and as you learn that, you'll probably do what I did, and turn your living space into something that Marie Kondo would be proud of. That about finishes up part 1. I am still waiting on a parts order for the MOC that I want to show off in part 2, but as soon as I have those pieces, we are going to be talking about growing as a hobbyist and letting your hobby grow with you, which I'm really excited for. As always, thank you so much for your support. It means the world. A huge shout out to my Patreons. Remember, if you want the instructions for this model or anything else that I have covered on the channel previously or in the future, go check out my Patreon. Everything will be available through there. Things are coming along nicely on the Urbanized Shrine video that y'all voted on in the community tab, so if you want to see that, make sure you hit subscribe. That's coming up soon and I'm super excited. Thank you so much for sharing a little bit of your time with me, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.